Welcome back to 15 and Counting. We've just recapped the LSU game that took place last week. Alabama winning that game 38-17. And just preview the Mississippi State matchup which is set to take place on this upcoming Saturday. And now, Ivan, it's time for you and I to get into the SEC and national action that will take place this weekend. Are you ready to go over some games?
Yes, sir.
Let's go over some games. In the first game here, we have number 8 Clemson versus Georgia Tech. We have Dabo Swinney, of course, Sammy Watkins, Taj Boyd versus, Coach Paul Johnson and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Now, Georgia Tech is that triple option offense. You don't know who's going to be on the receiving end of this. You don't know how big the quarterback play is going to be. But the running backs always get a lot of the good production out of that triple option offense versus Clemson, who, since that game against Florida State, I'm not really hearing much from Clemson right now. I'm not really hearing much from Taj Boyd, from Sammy Watkins. We're seeing that they are number 8 in the nation. They're still kicking a little bit.
Yeah, they're still kicking a little bit. I believe that the Clemson loss that they suffered, or the Clemson loss that they suffered to Florida State, it really brought them back down to earth. And I think Taj Boyd was flying on a little high cloud at that point. He had a little momentum going. He was hearing all this Heisman talk. Heisman matchup coming up, famous Jameis versus Taj Boyd of Clemson. And it brought him really back down to earth, and I think it focused them more than ever. And like you said, with Georgia Tech, that triple option, you never know who it's going to work against, how good it's going to work. You never know what's going to happen. It's one of the more perplexing offenses in all of college football. But with that being said, Clemson should pretty much handle this game as expected. Clemson has really gotten back on track, and I believe if any team that could benefit from a loss, I believe it's this Clemson team. They're one of the more surprising teams. In my opinion, I expect them to do what normal Clemson used to done in the previous years, was to fall off the face of the earth. When they really haven't, they've just blown under the radar. And quietly, if stuff happens at the top 5, they're not completely out of this national title picture. They're only number 8. Something happens to Florida State, they can still go to the ACC title game, for instance. They're not out of a BCS game completely. They can still get out at large bids somewhere possibly, but as long as they take care of their own business, there shouldn't be anything to worry about. So I'm just going to go ahead and give my prediction for this game right now. The Georgia Tech offense will, at one point in this game, show its dominance, but the Clemson defense is just going to be too much, and I believe Taj Boyd realizes his college career is nearly over. He doesn't have that much time left. He's going to make sure that he gets the job done for the rest of this year for the Clemson team. So my prediction will be Clemson 38, Georgia Tech 21. I know it sounds a little closer than what people are thinking, but I just think this Georgia Tech offense, there's just a little more confusing than what people give them credit for.
That is true there. And going back to what you mentioned about something were to happen in the top 5 of the BCS standings. You look at Florida State, how much of Yellow Jacket fans do you think Florida State will be right now, knowing that if Georgia State was to pull off the upset against Clemson, that would put Florida State square into the ACC title game?
You would be fans, but not really. If you're Florida State, if you're a really avid watcher of college football, you would not want Georgia Tech to beat Clemson because it would really make your strength of schedule decrease dramatically. The points in the BCS would go down so drastically because that blowout win you had against Clemson wouldn't look as pretty. Miami's loss to Virginia Tech isn't looking as good to Florida State anymore in the rankings because they lost to Virginia Tech, a team that wasn't ranked at the point. So Florida State's schedule is really taking a hit right now, and in my opinion, only Ohio State has an easier schedule out of the top 5 teams than Florida State did, because Ohio State really hasn't played anybody this year. Florida State's played ranked teams, but they've always played ranked teams when they're highest ranked. But everybody knew sometimes they were lucky. The Miami team, they were kind of fortunate to still be undefeated at the time. That's why I predicted that Florida State would win the game. And the Clemson game, if you play that game 10 more times, that same thing is not going to happen again. So if you're Florida State, you have to be rooting that Clemson keeps this number 8 ranking and keep going up on the rankings because it'll make you look better than what it would if they were to lose to Georgia Tech.
That's absolutely correct there. My prediction in this game, I'm going to go with Clemson in this ball game. I feel like Taj Boyd, Sammy Watkins, the Clemson defense will come out to play and play well under head coach Dabo Swinney. I like the triple option offense of Paul Johnson and Georgia Tech defense is starting to kind of gel a little bit more there. But I like Clemson in this match. I'm going to say Clemson will take it on in. I'm going to go with 35 to 20. I'm going to go with 35 to 21. 35 to 21 in favor of the Clemson Tigers. Taj Boyd will come out to play. We'll be ready to play. Sammy Watkins will be the main go-to receiver that Taj Boyd will find. And I thought the defense of Clemson will do just enough to disrupt that triple option offense of Paul Johnson and the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Number 2 here, game of the docket here, we have Georgia, who finally has back Todd Gurley. They can breathe. You know, Aaron Murray can finally say, I got one of my pieces back. I have all of them, I got one. So it's better to have one than none. Georgia finally getting back Todd Gurley from the Florida-Georgia game a couple of weeks back. So Georgia, 25th in the country being Georgia, still alive somewhat for the SEC title game. The SEC East, though it is a muddled division, it's still a 3-team race with South Carolina, Missouri, and of course Georgia. They take on the number 7 Auburn Tigers. And if I've known anything, Ivan, boy, has Gus Malzahn rejuvenated the run game with White.
Yes, and he's clearly the front runner for Coach of the Year right now. He's revived that program to the ashes that Gene Chizik had it at last year now, and he's revived it. They brought him back from Arkansas State this offseason for that reason. They knew he could bring this team back, and he's really making their hopes and praises answered, because this Auburn team was obviously predicted not to do it better. They couldn't get much worse than what they were last year, but they are doing. Nobody expected them to be the top 10 this late in the season. Nobody expected them to only have one loss, and that was a close loss to a good LSU team at home. It's kind of scary, this Auburn team, because you don't want them to get caught up in their own hype. But I keep saying it, they know it's looming in a couple weeks. You just always have to be, everybody knows. Everybody in the state of Alabama knows what's looming in a couple weeks. The Iron Bowl is looming. You don't want to get distracted, and I believe Malzahn, this is going to be his toughest test before the Alabama game, is to keep this team focused for this game. So, in my opinion, Georgia will put up points on this scoreboard, but not as much as people think. People are expecting this to be maybe a 38-35, maybe a 31-34 game. My prediction for this game is that it's just going to be Auburn running the ball like they want to. This young Georgia defense, who many people forget is still young, they're going to give up at least 30-some-odd points. So I'm going to believe it's going to be Auburn 37. I'm going to say Georgia 24. I just think Georgia's offense is going to run out of steam. Gurley's not going to... Is Gurley the one still in there?
Gurley's still in there.
Gurley's still in there, and he's back now. But it's just going to take a lot more than Gurley to get this Georgia team over this great Auburn team. I don't like saying the word great, but it is a good Auburn team. They really have played up this season, and I just don't think it stops here.
And one thing about Auburn that you have to recognize here is that Nick Marshall had 7 passes against Tennessee, but had 60 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. That's incredible. You look at Trey Mason, who had over 100 yards. You look at Auburn's special teams. Chris Davis, I want to say he had 2 punts for touchdowns. Auburn is getting it done on offense, or getting it done on defense, or getting it done in the special teams aspect. And like you said, Ivan, of course, Aaron Murray's happy to have Todd Gurley back. He's happy to have Bruce Ruby. He's happy to have Chris Conley. So he would wish to have Malcolm Mitchell and Justin Scott Wesley back. But defensively for Georgia, still young. Aaron Murray will do all he can on his final year in between the hedges and Athens at Georgia, trying to get this team to a productive bowl game. But I feel like this is the game Gus Malzahn continues to put on his build toward the Iron Bowl, continue to impress not only just the voters out there for BCS implications, but to impress the Auburn faithful, knowing that bringing back Malzahn was a good decision indeed. At night two, I'm going to go with Auburn in this match. We're going to go with Auburn by the score of 38-24. Georgia will put up points. I like Aaron Murray in this match to put the team on his back. Todd Gurley will be productive as he can, but I think it's going to be too much Nick Marshall. I think he actually passes more in this game. He's going to have to. I think it's going to be a lot of Nick Marshall passing, and a lot of Trey Mason running the football, and a lot of Sammy Coates getting a lot of receptions in this game. And I think that Auburn defense with Nosa Igwe, Jonathan Mincy, they will have a productive ball game under Gus Miles on like the Auburn Tigers would score 38-24 in this matchup with Georgia. Last game here on this docket, Ivan, really intrigues me. It's more than just a battle for the Big 12. It's a battle of two very interesting quarterbacks here. You have number 5 Baylor against Texas Tech. You have Art Royals basically put Baylor back on the map, so to speak. And you have Texas Tech's head coach, Cliff Kingsbury. Was a quarterback himself in college with Texas Tech under head coach Mike Leach at the time. Went from being a quarterback to a quarterback coach, now head coach for Texas Tech. Knows a lot about quarterbacking just like Steve Spurrier does. And he has his own quarterback he's trying to mold in Davis Webb. On the other side, Baylor has a quarterback that is in the Heisman running in Bryce Petty, also running back M.A. Seastrom. You have two very high-powered offenses going head-to-head in a collision clash for the Big 12. How exciting can this game be?
It's exciting. I mean, I have a very personal side to this game, not only because I'm from the state, but because I'm an avid Texas Tech fan. I've always rooted for Texas Tech growing up. I liked them. They were little guys. Baylor was also one of those teams I slightly rooted for once in a while because I didn't like Texas A&M or Texas, but I would always yell guns up for Texas Tech. But this game intrigues me. It's at a neutral site. That always adds things. It's in Cowboy Stadium this year. They're starting a rivalry between these two teams, and I'd say it's about time. These two teams have always didn't like each other, but this game intrigues me because, like you said, there's two high-potent offenses, but you have to always worry about defense. Texas Tech, in my opinion, it doesn't have one of the worst. It has a very bad defense for Big 12 standards.
And all Big 12 defenses are pretty bad.
And that's saying something. Texas Tech has a bad Big 12 defense. But I think that defense is just a little too young. And the Baylor defense really stepped up last week. Kudos to you and myself. We both said that Baylor would just annihilate Oklahoma, and that's exactly what they did. This Baylor defense is a little bit different than a normal Big 12 defense. They're good. They're fast. My heart wants to say go with Tech. You know, they can pull the upset. You never know. They can rout them. You know, they can not rout them. They can put up points. They can keep up with them. But, you know, my brain, and I'm just going to go with my brain. I feel bad for saying this. I'm going with Baylor, and they're going to win this game. It's going to be in the 40s, this game. You can't predict this game being less than the 40s. I think it's going to be 48-38. That's going to be my score. I want Texas Tech to hang around. It's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't see Tech doing anything. Baylor is on a mission right now, and I think their toughest test will come in a couple weeks when they have to go to OK State. Baylor, I think, has to go to OK State for the remainder of the season, and they still have that in-state battle looming with the Texas Longhorns, which you never know which team Mac Brown's going to put out there. So, Baylor 48-38. Over Tech is my prediction. It hurts to say that, but it's my prediction.
Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, 15 and counting. The dime, 10 cents, finally has a purpose. Congratulations for silver coin known as the dime. I am just giving you hope. 48-38, he has Baylor over Texas Tech. I'm going to say Baylor as well. Reason being, Bryce Petty, AC Strong, that offense, it's hard to stop that offense. It's very hard to stop that offense. They're a better version of Oregon, being they can put up points, but also they can play defense behind it. And Baylor, believe it or not, is a very physical football team, unlike Oregon, who was out physical again by Stanford this past week. So I'm going to go with the Baylor Bears again. Definitely we'll get into the 40s this week. But I won't say 48-38 in favor of Baylor. I'm going to actually go with 45-24 in favor of Baylor this weekend. Texas Tech, they're going to move the football. I like Davis Webb as a quarterback and what Cliff Kingsbury has done with him, but I think it's too much Baylor. They're on a mission. If they're picked for the BCS right now, they have a shot to, if they can keep this up, probably a Fiesta Bowl bid. If not, maybe a Fiesta Bowl bid. Could be an Orange Bowl bid, either or. But I like the Baylor Bears to win this from 45-24 over the Texas Tech Red Raiders and the guns up in the party score known as Lubbock, Texas. But Ivan, now it's time to get into one of our famous game segments. It's not over or under. I'm crying right now. It's not Name That Moment, which Ivan can breathe. It's not that. But this week, we're actually going to get into the Heisman conversation because going behold, it's the month of November. the games are actually starting to count. And lo and behold, next month, the Heisman Trophy will actually be given out via Nissan. So, Ivan, we're going to play Name Your Heisman Winner right now, and the 3 people that you would take to New York to be a part of the pageantry. So, you first off.
The 3 people I bring, it all depends on this weekend. I bring Lake Seastrom, running back from Baylor. He's really stepped up this season, and I believe he's been in the Heisman candidacy. He's one of those front runners in the beginning of the season that's actually hung around compared to the other ones. My second player I'd have to bring famous Jameis. You know, he's done so much this season. He's stepped up. He's become a leader of the team as a starting freshman this year, and he's really led up the scoreboard at Florida State. And of course, it's not a Heisman race without Johnny Manziel, is it?
No, it's not.
You
gotta bring the circus show.
You've got to bring Johnny Manziel into the picture. He's stepped up this season. His stats have actually gone up passing-wise compared to when he won the Heisman Trophy last year, and that's saying something. When you can improve on a Heisman Trophy winning season, you most certainly deserve to be invited back for a second consecutive year. Steven, who would you invite for your 3? And then we'll give our winners from our 3.
Who would I invite for my 3 from the Heisman Trophy? Number 1, I got to invite Bryce Petty. And the reason being, you're stepping up in the shoes of RG3. Those are some hard shoes to replace down there in Waco. And for Bryce Petty to be on the collision course he's on, getting our Brawls and the Baylor Bears, number 5th ranking, number 5 ranking in the country, you got to give Bryce Petty some popcorn and think of root beer and say, come on down to New York City for the Heisman Trophy presentation. So Bryce Petty will be one. The number 2 guy I would have here, I see him toying around with him in the back of my mind. It's number 2. He runs the ball crazy. Johnny Manziel. You got to bring Johnny. And the reason why you got to bring Johnny Manziel to the Heisman conversation, like Ivan mentioned, he's improved, but he's improved by taking some shots. He wasn't injured a lot last season. He got injured twice this season, and the mentality of him bouncing right back up and performing and keep performing and keeping Texas A&M alive. And a lot of things regarding a good bowl opportunity, you got to keep Johnny Manziel in the conversation. So I'll bring Bryce Petty, I'll bring Johnny Manziel, and the 3rd person that I would bring here, let's see here, I'm toying around in my mind, the magical Heisman people. See, what I bring here? Goodness. I'm bringing A.J. McCarron. The reason why I'm bringing A.J. McCarron to New York City because he's done it time and time again. He's a winner. He doesn't have to prove it anymore to an extent because he's proven it, but I like the hunger he has. I like the hunger he has. I like the mentality he has. If you look at his quarterback rating from year 1 start to now, it's gone up. You look at this completion percentage from year 1 to now, it's gone up. You look at the touchdown numbers from year 1 to now. I mean, what do you expect? You expect your quarterback to improve. You expect your quarterback to be a leader. You expect your quarterback to not make mistakes. Boom, boom, bam. A.J. McCarron has answered the bill every single season. And he's on a collision course of doing what Joe Namath couldn't do, what Kenny Stabler couldn't do, what Joe Parker Wilson couldn't do, what Greg McElroy couldn't do, what even Andrew Zhao couldn't do, and that is win a national title 4 times. Where he's going to throw in his redshirt freshman, he just got one. Where he's winning one 4 times, and 3 as a starting quarterback. A.J. McCarron is basically on that collision course, and it wouldn't be a Heisman conversation or a trip to New York if number 10 in crimson and white was not invited there.
Yes. I noticed you left 2 players out that you were very high on this season. I just wanted to ask you before we make our winners. You left Marcus Mariota out, who you've been very highly touted this whole season, and you left famous Jameis out of the conversation. Why'd you leave those 2 out?
Famous James, I'm saving that one for a bigger moment. I'm leaving out Marcus Mariota because of the fact that when you're owned by one team every year, and keep in mind the fan base of Oregon, we're making We Want Bama towels and t-shirts. Keep in mind Stanford is basically the little brother to Alabama. Both are physical. Both A.J. McCarron and Kevin Hogan, they both don't run a lot, but they can move. Don't take that away from them. They're physical guys. They make plays with their arms, they trust their offensive line, and they have the running back talent to get the job done. They're both physical. When you say we want Alabama, but you can't stop a physical tree that's in your backyard in your own conference, How in the world are you going to stop Alabama when you can't stop the carbon dioxide and oxygen? I hate biology, I'm using biological terms. That's in your backyard, being the Stanford Cardinal, who have owned you, who have held you under 80 plays 2 years in a row, who have frustrated Marcus Mariota, DeAnthony Thomas, and Josh Jacobs 2 years in a row. Nick Alioti's defense has to be smacked in the mouth. You can't stop one running play. Stanford uses the same, put the beef in and run Taylor Gaffney through the same beef every single play. That's why they hired Marcus Mariota. He did not get the job done against Stanford, which this game was highly televised. Was college game day not there?
They were there.
They were there.
Well, they were there because it was the Alabama-LSU game, but they were there momentarily on Thursday.
They were there momentarily in Palo Alto. Once again, Stanford got the job done. That's why I'm not putting Marcus Mariota in New York. If he goes to New York, kudos to him, he got there. But after that Stanford loss, in a game where all eyes were on you, you had the opportunity to, what I said last week, do what Mark Jackson would tell Reggie Miller. Bad man, what do you have to say now? Marcus Mariota had nothing to say. Kudos to him for putting the team on his back and trying to make the game interesting as of late. But when you're an elite quarterback, you make the game interesting the whole game. You don't just wait to the fourth quarter. You put on your boots, be a man, put on your chin strap, and make the game interesting for 4 quarters. Stanford did that. Kevin Hogan did that. Mariota did not.
All right. Now, with all that being said, who do you have winning?
Who do I have winning? Dun-dun-dun! Put the Superman Camp and the Bronze Trophy in the hands of famous Jameis Winston, in my opinion, wins the Heisman Trophy. And the reason why is it me or is do the freshmen drink this magical water before they come to college? I mean, famous Jameis, he puts on a show. And of the past quarterbacks I've seen to come out of Florida State, you're talking about guys like Chris Winkie. You're talking about, I don't have to put Chris Winkie in there, but you're talking about Chris Winkie. You're talking about guys like E.J. Manuel. Christian Ponder wasn't too bad of a quarterback in his own right. But when you look at Jameis Winston, just that charisma. He has that charisma, that personality. You look at most freshmen are kind of quiet and bottled up. He's not. Jameis Winston's not. He's kind of like Johnny Manziel, right? In a good way. He's got that charisma, he's got that personality, but he knows how to put it on the field. He knows how to take his game seriously, but not too seriously. He has fun with it. He's made his Florida State football team love coming to practice. And when your program loves to come to practice, it's a reflection of your coach, it's a reflection of your team. Jameis Winston doesn't make that many mistakes. He's put Florida State in the driver's seat to possibly get to a BCS national championship. But first things first, possibly getting an ACC title coming out of that Atlantic Division. Unlike famous Jameis Winston, he would get the bronze trophy this year, in my opinion.
All right. In my opinion, it's a tight race this year. It's been a very good. Bryce Petty seems to be a new front runner is emerging this year. Lake Seastrong, as I said earlier, seems to be a good option. You just can't go past famous Jameis, though. You see what he's done this season. He's been very successful at Florida State. But I'm going to go past famous Jameis. If I had to, I'd give the Heisman Trophy this year to Johnny Football. The reason I would give it to Johnny Football is because look at what he's worked with. He really hasn't had a defense. They've had to practically guarantee you have to go out there and score more points than any of the other teams that we face because they're gonna put up points. And he's gone out there, improved his numbers from his Heisman Trophy year the previous year, and compared to the other players on the list that we both mentioned, famous Jameis is playing with E.J. Manuel's talent that he left over when he left for the NFL.
So he's playing with leftovers?
He's playing with leftovers, but these are darn good leftovers. These are good players, and he's playing with a very good team around him. You look at Bryce Petty, he's playing with a very good defense around him. He's had Lake Seastrong, who I said is another Heisman candidate, and he's playing with other players on an offense that have stepped up substantially. You look at Johnny Manziel, and don't get me wrong, I am no way like the A&M Aggies or like anything that they have ever done. But with that being said, I consider myself a realist, and in realist talk, he has to be the Heisman Trophy winner this year. considered what he'd done, considered what he went through this summer. All eyes were on him. He knew all eyes were on him, and he still found a way to step up. So in New York City, next month, in my opinion, the man that should get that bronze trophy, the Heisman Trophy, for the second consecutive year, and be only the second player
Since Archie Griffin
to win 2 Heisman trophies, will be Johnny Football. In my opinion, and I know it as saying that as an Alabama fan, how can you say that? Gosh darn it! If this is fine, Bob, I'd be getting calls in left and right now. In my opinion,
you get some serious hate mail.
In my opinion, you've got to give the man credit where credit's due. He's a good player. I've been sipping from the Johnny Manziel haterade before. I ran out. It went dry because I can't find anything else to hate the man for.
We feel the haterade. He's lost some water right now. So why do we feel that?
Besides the fact that he does have off-field actions that can perplex people sometimes, Johnny Football has stepped up all on the field. He stepped up as a leader. Now, I'm going to add this before we end the show, wrap up the show for this week. If I could put a wild card in there, and I'm going to give you an opportunity. That's your Steven, I'll let you go first. If you had a wild card player that could possibly win or even just get invited to New York City, who would you put in there?
I would throw in Teddy Bridgewater. And the reason why I'm throwing Teddy as a wild card, he went down after the UCF game. I mean, before the Central Florida game, it was talking about, Teddy would win the Heisman Trophy. Teddy, one of the best passer rating, passes completed, touchdowns. It's Bridgewater. And Charlie Strong, don't get me wrong, Charlie Strong has done an amazing job with delivery. He's done an amazing job with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater's story is phenomenal. But Louisville doesn't play anybody. And after the loss he took to UCF, his Heisman train went down 12. So, if I had a chance to bring him on as a wild card, I would bring on Teddy Bridgewater because of his passion for the game, the leadership he did display, and is still being displayed for the Louisville Cardinals, and the way he plays the game with such urgency, such passion, such precision and accuracy, and the leadership that he brings to this football team, him just being a sophomore. So I would definitely give Bridgewater a shot to come to New York as an extra, as a wild card.
All right. And in my opinion, if I had to throw a wild card out there, it'd be a guy. The receiver position as a whole doesn't really get touted that much, and most people would say Sammy Watkins is a very good receiver, but he doesn't deserve to be in that. He doesn't deserve to be in the Heisman race. In other years he would. This year I don't believe he is either. There is another receiver, and I know it sounds like, again, I'm sipping from A&M.
Oh my God! Don't say it! Don't say it!
There's another receiver that resides in A&M right now.
Oh my gosh!
That has been a complete monster for Johnny Manziel, and if Johnny Manziel goes, for gosh darn it, Mike Evans, the wide receiver,
he said it,
deserves to be in the Heisman race as well, because Manziel wouldn't have gotten most of his yards without Mike Evans. Mike Evans has used his God-given height and a talent and ability to succeed this year, and he stepped up this year drastically. And if I had to put in a wild card, he'd be my wild card.
He's 6'5". I mean, what do you expect? He can catch a pebble with his throw. Hey, Mike Evans throw.
And that's why the Missouri Tigers are being successful this year. They have 3 or 4 receivers that are over 6'4" or taller, and you notice they're being successful this year. I didn't put any of them in the Heisman candidates either.
But that's good though. It's good that you did include Mike Evans along with Johnny Manziel, because lo and behold, Mike Evans has been the favorite target of Johnny Manziel. Well, look at the time. That is all we have today on 15 and Counting, Touchdown Alabama Magazine's premier football show. Once again, we'd like to continue to thank Mr. Gary Lewis and the hospitality here at Rama Gems. Folks, we're not blowing smoke. This is an amazing place here. It's not just the food, though the food is good. It's the atmosphere of the Crimson Tide surrounding you in this building. It's the love and the support that we get every time we come in here to do a show. Once again, I want to thank Title Towel, Whitwell Sports for all the support they show with the t-shirts, with the Title Towel, with the support they give us through Facebook and through Twitter as well. Once again, the Alabama-Mississippi State game will be played this weekend. I want to say it would be November the 16th, 2013 in Starkville, Mississippi. Cowbell Nation, the fans will be there live cheering Mississippi State, but Alabama Crimson Tide fans will be there cheering on the Crimson Tide and hope to get another win and move on in their schedule. Once again, for all of us here, Touchdown Alabama Magazine, I'm your host, Stephen M. Smith. Alongside me, our co-host here, Ivan White. It's been a great show today. And until next time, enjoy the game. So long, everybody, and roll tide.
Roll Tide.
Did you ever say deuces, man?
Yeah.